Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to your Monday Night Rabble at 7:30. My name is Brian, the host tonight, and I'm joined by a stellar cast tonight. I have got Kieran, Lewis, and Stuart. Kieran, how are we?
Yeah, same old, man. Just working away and watching this comedic circus that we call Rangers at the moment. But aye, apart from, I'm sure we'll get into that later on. But how's yourself? How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Not bad at all. So, yeah, half of the Rangers team ruined it, but thankfully the other half that we just spoke about at 6:30 didn't ruin it. So, it's 50% okay, 50% not. Stuart, how are we?
Good, Brian. Yes. Evening, everybody. Hope everybody's well. Good to be on with you. Yeah, but look, another frustrating weekend supporting Rangers. Although bizarrely, is anybody really surprised? I'm not sure. That was the kind of feeling I got at Ibrox on Saturday, that nobody was. Yeah, there was frustration and anger there, but I don't think anybody was really surprised about what we saw. But yeah, as Kieran says, I'm sure we'll get into it.
Absolutely. And there's no better person to speak about the current Rangers goings than Lewis. Lewis, how are we?
Well, my entrance into the podcast is about as disastrous as Rangers' current season. As you all know, this is the first time you've seen my face. I was trying so hard to get my camera connected, and it was something to do with my browser, but I got it fixed, so made it an end.
Absolutely. Always glad to have you on, Lewis, especially the topic tonight. This is going to be a busy one, folks, so get your comments in. I've put a big queue at the start if you want a question brought up, and we'll do as best as we can. And as Martin out is saying, like, subscribe, and share, troops. Yeah, absolutely. Get it sharing all over the place. We're on all the socials, all over the networks, YouTube, X, Facebook, but I believe we're still on what's the TikTok and all that. We're all on that. I'm not on that, so I'm too old for that nonsense. It's way above me, so I'll leave that to the young ones. But Kieran, the title of the pod is obviously, are the players getting a free pass? It's a difficult one, this, isn't it? Because they're obviously following instructions from the head coach, and as things go, if the plans don't go to sort of the plans don't go correctly, then things go awry.
I mean, realistically, the players that we have, the talent that's in that squad, there's absolutely no reason for them to be playing this bad. We've touched on this for season upon season. Yeah, the players are not following instructions, but they cannot be that bad. They cannot be that so badly drained the football IQ at times, just shadows the players that we've seen previously. I mean, Asgard played brilliant for Norway. Granted, yeah, people are going to say they were tap-ins, but he was up the pitch to tap them in. We had Raskin that played really well for Belgium, who was sitting in the stands, that probably had one of the best hate watches of his life. You've just got comedic errors, and I've said this again since last season. Every time the opponents are in our half, we should just start playing the Benny Hill theme music over the tannoy, because it's going to be comedic defending. It's going to be horrendous, just basics that you would do. And if they are so beasts in training, why can't they bring that onto the pitch? So, no, players aren't getting a free pass, but there's a couple of them where you can maybe go, they're not understanding whether to be in the system. But you've got players that have been here long enough. You've got players that have played the game long enough. They know how to pass, move, and shoot. Yet they look absolutely clueless when they get onto the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, Stuart, Sean was just saying there, the players aren't allowed the freedom to be creative. It's an RM tactical issue. I mean, I think the classic one is sort of Ant-Man and Gassam. When they first started, my word, they looked, we thought, wow, we've got players here. We're onto something here. And within 2-3 games of them being involved, they're just shadows of what they showed in the first game. Gassam was electric, taking on defenders, scoring goals. Ant-Man was assisting, up and down the right-hand side. And now they're just shadows of themselves. Is it a fact that Russell Martin is basically sort of not allowing them to be the players they are?
I think two things can be true at the same time on this. I think clearly, I think we've seen it all season so far. These players seem to be struggling to adapt to whatever Russell Martin is asking them to do. I think that's fairly obvious. I put in our group chat yesterday. I also feel though that I think the effort and sometimes the work rate of some of these players isn't there. Our Martin talks about Russell Martin has been out-coached by pretty much all these managers. I actually think that's been too kind to these other managers, because I'm not seeing them doing anything that is, really surprises you. It's not, here's two guys playing at sweeper in a Champions League game away in Monaco kind of style of stuff. But what those managers are getting from their team is a work ethic that is far superior than what we're seeing from this Rangers team at the moment. That first half, I don't know how many times I said to the folks sitting around me, there's another second ball that Rangers are nowhere near. Every second ball, it was a Hearts player that was onto it. So I think there's you can put that down to a work rate. I think maybe some positional issues with that. So I think there's two things, as I say, can be true at the same time. I think there's clearly issues with what Russell Martin is asking to do and their interpretation of that. But I also think there's something here about those players and the effort that they're putting in, because there was more effort in the second half. Still wasn't great, but there was a difference. So what's causing that then? Why can't you see that from minute one? Why is it taking them to go in at half time for suddenly that to change? So I don't think they should get a free pass in this. And I also think there's an element of, yes, we may say that maybe his style and his philosophy, maybe that is suffocating some of these players. But you would like to think that at certain times, these players who are on the park would be able to say, hold on a second, right? We need to do something a wee bit different here, or I'm going to take a wee bit of responsibility here, because currently what we're doing isn't working. Yes, a manager will have his views and will try and tactically set them up, but surely as a manager as well, you want to allow your players to sort problems themselves. It shouldn't all have to come from the touchline. And I don't think you're seeing any of that from this Rangers side either. It's okay, the manager's asked us to do this, so we're just going to keep doing it. Well, surely somebody should be able to stand up and say, well, actually, no, I'm not just going to roll the ball to a centre half here and then roll it to the left back and then, we'll pass it back, whatever. I think the players can try and solve some of the problems themselves. So I think there's a multitude of things that play into this. And it's not making for pleasant viewing. It's leaving Ibrox on Saturday, the number of people that I overheard saying, I don't want to come back and watch this, it was stark. I heard quite a few people saying that, and I think we'll see that on Saturday with the attendance.
Yeah, I think the attendance on Saturday is going to be very telling as to where the fans see everything, Lewis. It's difficult because there's no apparent leaders on the pitch, Lewis. There's nobody to. I mean, we have a leader you could call, but he was unfortunately sitting in the stand, wasn't involved. So I'm with Stuart. The players need to take some responsibility at some point, but then is the same going to happen to them? What happened to Raskin? They're not following his orders, so he's going to take the huff with them and banish them. I mean, there isn't enough strong leadership in the group to do what Stuart's suggesting. I don't think. I mean, I totally agree with Stuart's saying. They do need to take responsibility, but I don't think there's anybody strong enough in that 11 to do that.
No, I mean, I agree with Stuart up until a point because, there's a real lack of a decent baseline level of effort that should come with being a professional footballer, never mind being a professional footballer for Glasgow Rangers, right? That there should be a much higher baseline level of effort, and we're not seeing that. But you're also right in the fact that, see, if anybody is to be strong enough to stand up to his methods, what happens to them? Because the two strongest characters we have in this squad, you would probably pick out the captain and Raskin, and that's the two enemies he's made.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that tell you? That tells you that he enjoys people that are yes men, and that's probably why a lot of his signings have been under the age of 23, because you're less likely to have a backbone at that age unless you're somebody that's a bit unique like Nico Raskin. It's usually players that are of a certain vintage that are strong enough to stand up to a manager's methods. No guys that are under 23, and what we've signed 10 players, and at least 9 of them are probably under 23 years of age. So that's probably why, because they're not old enough, they don't have enough experience, they don't come for clubs that you experience the pressure levels that you experience at Rangers. And the two guys that have experienced that, one of them was the captain, and there's rumours going about that they too have had their bust ups, and he was dropped for probably the worst fullback I've ever seen play for Rangers in a short period of time, Max Aarons. And the other guy was our player of the year last year, and probably is right now the best midfielder in Scotland. He's just scored for Belgium and a midfield with Kevin De Bruyne, but he's not good enough to play for Rangers against Hearts. And the annoying thing is, why are we not being told what the situation with Raskin is? Because see, if it's that bad, then Raskin doesn't deserve for that to be hidden. He deserves for that to be made public. If he's done something that severe that he just gets ousted for the squad, then why does he then deserve it to be made a secret? Because Russell Martin must be intelligent enough to understand that the fan base is going to be like, well, if you're not going to tell us, then all we can say at face value is that you're drawing our best player and you're not telling us why. And you're saying that he needs to earn the respect of his fellow teammates back. That doesn't sound like just a normal occurrence. Nico Raskin must have done something bad enough for that to be the case. And we talk about effort as well. How difficult would it be to follow somebody that is creating an environment that is unenjoyable? We've seen it under Clement, we've seen it under Bale, we've seen it under Gio. See, eventually, players just can't play. You need to enjoy football to play it. There's very few people in the world that can be an elite level athlete if they don't enjoy the sport they're an elite level athlete in. So that's probably another reason why the effort levels are so low. But just I could go on, but there's just too much to get into. There's too much to get into.
But that's the thing, isn't it, Lewis? I mean, we can talk about playing styles, philosophies, all that. If the effort isn't there, you're goosed. You're goosed from minute one. And if you go back through every game, Motherwell worked harder than us. Dundee worked harder than us. St Mirren worked harder than us. Celtic game, actually, but I think that game kind of takes care of itself. And Hearts deserved their victory. And so absolutely. By the way, I wasn't blown away by them as if they were some really silky outfit. I think I've probably seen better Hearts teams come to Ibrox and lose, but they worked harder than us all over the park. And so when that, like say, any loose ball, any second ball, they were straight onto it. And it just meant that we were building no momentum in the game. When was the last time you seen a Rangers team really dominate a game? We don't. It doesn't matter who the opposition is. We don't dominate games of football enough to make it difficult. We don't pen teams in. These teams always feel as if they've got an opportunity, and we look easy to play against at the moment. And there's no fear factor from these teams. So I think it's a mess from a coaching perspective, but you would also hope that there is some personal pride within these players that, you're right, it can't be enjoyable to be playing that in the way that stadium is. I mean, Ibrox was toxic on Saturday, the worst I've ever seen it in terms of what the manager was getting. I've never seen it like that, so personal. But it doesn't make a good atmosphere for these players to be playing in either.
So see when you're saying about how toxic it was with the atmosphere, there was one player that I thought completely just hid away, and he's meant to be one of our leaders. Now it was Soapy. I thought Soapy wanted to be anywhere else but on that pitch. He looked an absolute shadow of himself, making silly fouls. The one at the end, his head completely gone. He just drags the boy down. He doesn't need to. He can jockey him and sidestep and put it out for a corner. Instead of putting the ball out for a corner, he just drags him down for no reason. I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on the referees' calls and everything like that, how horrendous it was. But when we talk about this anxiety around the players and everything, I mean, it kind of felt like Martin at one point was trying to blame the fans for the attitude and the anxiety. He just doesn't have an absolute clue. For somebody that came and played for the club, and he knows what it's like. When he first walked in the door, he was told probably that this club, you can't even take a draw. That's the end of the world. A defeat's unthinkable. A draw is the end of the world, and a win is the only thing that we'll accept here. How he's came in and said, I mean, he said he was going to show us attacking, relentless play, but we would be dominant on the ball. If we're getting outworked by the dross of the league, and I'm not including Hearts in there because Hearts played really well, but they're playing under McInnes, who they know how he wants to play. He does it at every team. He's hard to beat. He's compact. He likes to hit the counter, and he's got a little bit of a better quality than he did at Kelly. So the player like Braga, he seems to be flourishing under him, and Shankland, etc. But the toxicity of the actual team, you can see between the players. Soapy just looks like he could want to be anywhere else apart from that pitch. And just before we move on to the next point, the fact that we started Giga instead of Cornelius, who scored an absolute screamer for Canada, to bring on Giga, who maybe he's going to grow into be a player, but he is an absolute shadow of what he could be. He's an absolute shadow of what a Rangers defender should be. And you can see it within the first goal. He doesn't even track back. He jogs back. If you've got somebody ahead of you, you should be sprinting and doing everything you can. We've got too many players that we've brought in that just don't understand it. They just don't get it.
So Suter, I don't think Suter hasn't played well. Actually, his best performances have come in a Scotland jersey, not a Rangers jersey. I think it's quite telling that he's now into the final year of his contract, and I don't believe there's a contract on the table for him. I personally, he's done well enough for us, but I'm not going to lose any sleep if John Suter leaves at the end of the year. On the anxiety bit, one, you've got a manager who the pressure's clearly getting to him because now he's starting to talk real nonsense in these press conferences. So I think that's a pressure thing getting to him. But the anxiety that's on that pitch, well, that's just a consequence of the start of the season. If Rangers would be winning games, then the fans would be getting behind the team. Ibrox would be in a far better place on match days. The toxicity and the anxiety is because of the results. So Russell Martin can't hide behind that because actually he's playing a part in that anxiety and that toxicity being there in the first place because we've not won a game in the league so far. We're sitting 10th in the league. So you're right. He's been a player here in a really, really poor Rangers side. So he would have experienced what Ibrox can be like when it's not going well. So this shouldn't be a shock. But I think what you're starting to see is some of these comments he's making. That's a man under pressure and under pressure and starting to say things which aren't great. And yeah, it felt like almost like, well, I've had a go at the players, now I need to have a go at the fans as well. Look, mate, if you don't win games of football at Rangers, the pressure and the fans are going to be on top of you. That cannot be a surprise to you. So don't come away with that in a press conference. It's not helping your case one little bit.
No.
See, just following on, Mary generalised point on what Stuart said there about his communication, I think, has been a problem that slowly became bigger as the.
He started okay, Lewis, I think.
He started fine, but I'll be very careful in how I word this because there's a lot nastier vocabulary I could use to describe this man and how I feel about this man, but it's like his communication is so mixed that he flings the players under the bus on the first domestic game of the season against Motherwell, and the fan base go, aye, that's what we want to see. He's a strong character. He's going to be a bit of a dictator. That's good. The next game, the same situation happens, but he then reverts to saving the players and not flinging them under the bus. But then he's doing it to Nico Raskin, so he's flung him under the bus. But then Joe Rothwell looks like a tomato every time he plays for Rangers, and nothing gets done to him. So what kind of signals is that sending these players? Then a new manager coming in, and 1 minute he's flinging everybody under the bus, and the next minute he's trying to save face for everybody. And it's not just that. Like, he just doesn't seem like a nice guy at times. Like, see if you really analyse his press conferences, very often he doesn't let reporters finish the line of questioning and answers before the question is finished. That is a real sign of narcissism and arrogance. That is not somebody we want at this football club. You're there because you're lucky to be there. You're more lucky than anybody that's ever had that position before you. You will sit there and you will answer the question properly. And then it was even when David and Stevie had the cojones to ask him hard questions, he was trying to do the same thing, but they're different. They're no journalists, they're fans. So they went straight back at him, and he didn't know how to handle it because he's only a strong character until he's challenged. And that's the same issue that comes for him sending mixed signals. Like, see, in any line of work, all years of work, right? See if you've got a manager you think is running not a tight ship, but the other version, it's really, really difficult for you to find motivation to enjoy your work, and it won't be any different for a football player, especially a guy that, we're sitting 10th in the league. We're 10th in the fucking league, man. Mm-hmm. We're 4 points. We're like the third most goals conceded and the third least goals scored.
Yeah, we're exactly where we are, Lewis, aren't we? We're exactly where we deserve to be. When you put it like that, third least goals scored and third most conceded, we're slap bang exactly where we should be. So if that's not alarming, then I don't know what is. I'll throw this to all of you, these two questions, because it's two questions combined. Does Raskin start on Saturday? And then followed up by Janet. If Raskin doesn't start, does he have a future at Rangers or just have to hang it out until January? I mean, this is the problem. I spoke, I think, was it Saturday or Sunday? Kieran, the more we don't start this guy, the more his value plummets, which means the less that we're liable to get for him any transfer, be that January or summer. So the manager's playing a dangerous game here with Nico Raskin because Nico Raskin's determined to stay in the Belgium squad, the Belgium team. If he's not playing for Rangers, Belgium aren't going to pick him. So this is a dangerous game from both Raskin and the manager, isn't it? Because they're both going to suffer.
I think Belgium probably feel that they're not. No one, I think, at the moment is going to replace Raskin's role. I mean, the two midfielders they have are getting on a bit. They don't run as much. They've not had somebody in that Belgian side that runs as much as Raskin and just an absolute terrier for a while. I think Raskin probably has a feeling that he'll be there longer than Martin will. I think that will be a feeling about the camp that the players that are not favoured will probably get another chance, because I think it doesn't take a genius to work out what's happening just now. Russell Martin's in turmoil, 100%. He, like we said, the way he's answering questions, before it was quite a calmed approach. Now it's very snippy. He's just got this arrogant God complex for somebody that can't back it up. And I mean, we had Bonnie Blue in the stadium and Russell Martin received a bigger pump in at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? It's just absolutely ridiculous. I just can't understand how Russell Martin's the type of guy that would probably deny to his missus that he's pissed on the toilet seat. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't trust him. If he told me it was raining outside, I would open the blinds and check myself. He's just the type of person that how can you relate to him as a player? And I think that Raskin probably will be able to see what's coming. And yeah, look, listen, if he's not getting played, that's a problem for him as well and his value. But I think Raskin, especially with the fans singing his name again for the second game with him being there, I do have a feeling that Raskin probably knows that he's a lot more respected than Martin in this football club. And I think that he'll feel that his time is more valued. And they'll want to keep Raskin. I think the board will do what they can to keep Raskin. I don't think Raskin goes in January. If Martin's not there in January, Raskin's in our team, if not possibly vice-captain. I think that Raskin has that type of authority over the team. If Martin's still there and it comes to January, maybe it's a different question because Nico, like Lewis said, football's a game you want to enjoy. It's a game that you have to enjoy to be able to play. Mm-hmm. Look at Ronaldo, for example, when he went back to Man U. He didn't like it. That's why he moved on. Because he didn't like the structure, he didn't like the boss, he didn't like the vibe around the place. Mm-hmm. Now, in no way am I comparing Raskin to Ronaldo, but he's our star player, like Ronaldo was for them. He's our star player. We should be doing what we can to accommodate him. And because of Russell Martin's arrogance, I think Raskin will be there a lot longer than he will.
Just Collie Boy has joined as a YouTube member, so much appreciated, Collie Boy. Hope you enjoy all the content and the extra shows that come with being a member. So thank you for joining us. Just following on from that, Stuart, do you think Raskin's playing a bit of a game of poker here in the sense that he just has to shut his mouth and let Russell Martin just let Russell Martin effectively just bellow and Raskin will outlast Russell Martin?
Yeah, look, Russell Martin is going to get the sack. I think we all thought it was coming at 5 o'clock on Saturday. It hasn't, but it will happen. Whether that's next Saturday, week after. Russell Martin is in a position now where he already, even at the start, he wasn't particularly a popular choice, but he's now lost the whole support. So regardless if Russell Martin wins the next 5 games, but then loses the 6, we're right back to square one. There is no way he recovers from this position. So will Nico Raskin be here longer than Russell Martin? Yes, he absolutely will be. If Nico Raskin isn't starting on Saturday, then, you would like to think that Russell Martin won't have the ability to answer those questions, but he might get asked it in the presser that's coming up on Friday. The thing is, if he's been told, we've been told he's back in the squad, he's back training doing stuff like that. If he then comes round again and says, no, he's not going to be part of the squad for Saturday, well, one, you're then just carrying this on. It doesn't go away. It builds and it builds. So I think as Lewis touched on earlier, I think the calls then for getting more of an explanation as to why that they're making that decision. What is going on there? I think we deserve to know that as fans. But also, you looked at that midfield performance on Saturday. You can't say, you could maybe make a case and say, well, do you know what? That midfield did okay against Celtic. So, if Raskin's had a fallout with the manager, or if he's not behaved exactly right, would it then be fair on, say, Connor Barron, who had a decent game against Celtic, to say, oh, by the way, he's straight back in, you're on the bench, Connor? So you can see that. But nobody played well on Saturday, so there's no kind of argument here to say, well, no, they deserve their slot and Nico needs to work his way back into the team. So, he's got a big decision there. If he's got any sense, then yes, Raskin comes back in and for that game. Would it surprise me if he's not? No, because actually nothing is surprising me at the moment with what's happening here. I keep thinking to myself, I don't believe, surely it can't be his ego is that big that he's not wanting to play a Belgian internationalist. Surely not. But then you kind of catch yourself and sort of, well, maybe he is. You know, you don't know. But this needs to get resolved one way or the other. Or else, like I say, it just keeps going. He's going to keep getting asked about it in press conferences.
It's just going to fester, isn't it?
Yeah, we need him back in the team. But Nico Raskin will be here far longer than Russell Martin will.
Yeah. I mean, Lewis, I'm of the firm belief now Nico Raskin's just decided to shut his mouth and just let Russell Martin basically, get himself the sack. Because I think even Nico Raskin's sitting there thinking, how can I not get in this team? This is bonkers. I can't get in this team. And I think that's the reason why we're not hearing anything from Raskin or anything about it, is I think Raskin's just decided, you know what, I'll just keep my mouth shut and I'll let him get himself the sack, because there's no way. I don't think any manager in Scotland would be taking this line that Russell Martin's taken.
No, certainly not. And I mean, it just allows us to dive further into this guy's psyche as a person, because look how Barry Ferguson handled Nico Raskin.
Perfect.
We were publicly let known about how Raskin acted with the previous regime with Barry and co, and that it was slightly difficult to handle. But because Barry was a strong character himself, he knew that you just deal with that with some players, because they will then pay you back on the pitch. And instead, Russell Martin, who's an egotistical maniac for some reason, which it just doesn't really make sense, because I watched his interview with Gary Lineker before he became Rangers manager, and he spoke a lot about how he's felt like he needed to prove everybody wrong and continue to break through, because his talent level as a footballer wasn't high enough to where he ended up being. But you would think that somebody like that wouldn't be as narcissistic, because they had an understanding that there was always bigger and better than them. But yet this guy thinks that he's the be all and end all, and to some extent you are, but not to the extent where you don't let people finish questions and you become aggressive and very defensive. And he also doesn't ever take responsibility, which is something that Philippe Clement done quite a lot. And his time at Rangers was refused to take sole responsibility for some of the results. Russell Martin has not done that once. And in the results, we have suffered our worst defeat in European history. And even then, that man did not take any responsibility for that defeat. There's too many worrying signs, and it starts to make me question the board slightly, because I think the trust level between us and the new board is starting to wither a wee bit. In their first interview with Andrew and Parag, they stated that, one, they understood Rangers. Right, well, if you understand Rangers, this guy should have been gone after Bruges. So that's becoming a wee bit of a lie. And number two, we would hear from you when things were bad. Things were bad 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's DEFCON 5 now. We need to hear from somebody at the board level, or what you told us was not true. And I understand that, in reality, these things can't happen as quickly as we'd like them to be. But surely if they had any inkling of what Rangers stands for, you made a mistake doing this in the first place. Nobody wanted him. He's by far the most unlikable manager in Rangers history. He is now officially the worst manager in Rangers history, and you're allowing him to continue in that position. We need to hear from you, or that trust level between us and you then becomes to dissipate very, very quickly.
I think see on that, I think one of the reasons we're probably not hearing from them is that they maybe don't want to do what Patrick Stewart did. After Queen's Park, came out, back Philippe Clement, and then a week later sacked him. So, they're maybe hedging their bets ever so slightly here to say, well, do you know what? If we lose on Saturday against Hibs, then yeah, we are going to pull the plug. Then we would hear from them. So, but I think Lewis has touched on something I've been thinking about today. It's trying to understand the rationale of the board to not sack him at this moment. And I'm really, really struggling to understand what the thinking is, because, as I said before, there is no way back for him here. He's completely lost the even the few supporters who were on board with him, or that group of supporters like myself who said no, I wasn't particularly wanting Russell Martin as a manager, but he's the guy now, so he's going to get my backing. So you've even lost people like me. So it's to think, how do they believe that he is going to be able to turn this round? And the prolonging of this, I also think they have a bit of a duty of care to him as well. Let's be honest, what he went through on Saturday was not nice.
No.
Right? It would take an unbelievably strong character to not be affected by the fact that 50,000 folk are telling you where to go, basically, and the abuse that he's now taking. He cannot be going into work and giving his best now. If Lewis is right in saying that, players going into that atmosphere are probably not enjoying going to work, you cannot tell me that Russell Martin has rocked up to the training centre today and has been full of the vigour of life and ready to get going. So I think they've also got a duty of care, and his mental health as well. Put him out his misery. I just cannot get my head square that circle of what they're thinking here in terms of not letting him go, because you're just prolonging it. It's going to happen. So you might as well make that decision now, and actually at a time where we could still salvage something within this season. It is only September. No, we can still, but you go into Saturday, you lose that. There's one of the cups gone as well. Yep. The league is looking like a very, very long shot now already, even after 5 games. So do the decent thing. I just can't. I don't know. Have you got any idea why they're not doing it?
I think what you just said is probably a large degree of truth. They're not wanting to do what Patrick Stewart did and come out and back the manager and then sack him a few weeks later or a week later. I think they're keeping their powder dry until they actually do it. I think they're keeping their powder dry until they actually pull the plug on him.
Do you think?
Why not do it then, Brian?
I don't know.
What
really
is the thought process there?
Do you think?
I'm certainly of. I mean, I don't know any. I think everybody in the comments and all us and that are on the pod, I don't think any of us know anybody that is willing to give him a chance now. I think everybody's, as like you said, Stuart, there was a good majority of people didn't want him, never wanted him. There was a section of people that didn't want him but were willing to give him the chance, and then there was a small percentage who were wanting him. You've now got, I would say, 99.999% of the Rangers support not wanting him and wanting him sacked. So, as you said, he's virtually lost a whole support. I think that first away game, I think Motherwell was their first away game. There was that game, and then there was the other away game, the European away game, the Bruges game. I think when the away support turn on you, I think you're a dead man walking them, because the away support are the absolute hardcore of the fan base, and when the away support make their mind up, it's extremely difficult to come back from that. And I think now I personally think he's a dead man walking now. I don't see a universe where he manages to dig himself out of this hole and get fans back on side, Kieran. I just don't see it.
Just on that point there, do you think it's because it was the board's first major decision and they just don't want to admit they got it wrong? I mean, we could speculate as much as we want on facts and figures about the Clement situation. I think it's genuinely because the top of the tree have been fooled by a shite appointment. Let's not dance around it here. They've been fooled by a salesman, as the previous board were with Beale. Apart from Beale had some sort of backup to back it up.
I think you're right, Kieran. I think, see, on that though, I think you're maybe right, but actually that damages them more if that's their thought process, to say we don't want to admit that we got this wrong. Because I think, yes, you will always get those that are out there and stuff like that, but I think the vast majority of Rangers fans would understand that mistakes can happen, and also have an appreciation when somebody says we got that wrong. we're holding our hands up and we're cutting ties now, and we're going to really double down and do all our efforts now into appointing the right man to take us forward.
Yeah,
you're losing face now by just letting this run on, because then you're starting to say, well, not only have you appointed the wrong guy, you're now not wanting to admit that. That I think that causes them issues going forward. The longer this is left to run.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Lewis, do you see a universe where Russell Martin turns this around and miraculously makes us playing well and the fans are back on board? I mean, I think the last time a manager that I can remember getting a dreaded vote of confidence was Sir Alex Ferguson in 1990. He got the dreaded vote of confidence before the Nottingham Forest game, won that, and then won the FA Cup or the League Cup, and then he went on, and that was history. But I can't remember another manager getting a vote of confidence and then turning it around, and I just don't see it in this occasion either.
No, and I mean, you just mentioned a serious outlier there. Like that's a once in a blue moon occasion, especially in modern times. See, when you get that dreaded vote of confidence nowadays, it's, not long after that follows the termination in the manager's contract, and it certainly has for Rangers, because when Gio, Beale and Clement all got the same thing, it was less than a month and they were out of a job.
Yeah.
And all three of the managers are far superior to the man that's in this position. And it's even like somebody put a comment, and see right now there's a real healthy amount of top tier managers available right now that Rangers with some financial backing could seriously entice to come here.
Yeah.
For example, right, and that's just the I'm going to read you a quote from a very, very special person in football, right? And it's a quote on tactics, and it compares somebody like Russell Martin, somebody like Ange Postecoglou, and then the outlier that they all seem to follow, the Messiah and Pep Guardiola, who, by the way, seems to be the only guy that succeeds with this. This is a guy that's the antithesis to this, right? You have coaches who try to do things that just don't work, and because of that, they die. But they say, I died. At least I died by my ideas. My friend, if you died by your ideas, you are stupid. And that was the one and only Jose Mourinho.
Yep.
Let's look at his trophy cabinet and some of the guys I just listed off. Does Jose Mourinho care about style? Does Jose Mourinho care about how attractive we are at playing football? No. Was his Chelsea team exciting to watch? No. But they conceded the record least amount of goals in Premier League history and was one of the most dominant teams at that time.
I mean, I think the Jose team, when he first appeared at Chelsea, was exciting. I mean, my God, they had Drogba and Robin and all those guys. They were unbelievable. They were scoring goals and then not conceding any, because they had Carvalho, Terry. I mean, okay, I'm certainly not comparing the class of player, but you know what I mean? He set up a team for a specific reason. He wanted a big, strong number 9 that could hold the ball up, do something. And then he had the pacey wingers. Okay, you could argue that his styles maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but I'll tell you what he would do. He would go in there and he could deal with any character that we've got. He would get the best out of Raskin. He would find a way to push Raskin's buttons.
He'd love Raskin.
He would love him, yeah, exactly, because he's his type of player. And I've said for a good number of weeks now that since Jose got the sack at Fenerbahce, we've at least Stuart got to ask that question and ask him, would you be up for this job?
So I see, regardless of who the next manager is going to be, I think it's going to be really interesting, because at the moment I think Sean Dyche is the favourite, isn't he? And I'm just picking Sean Dyche because, yeah, I think he has his faults, but I think if Sean Dyche was the Rangers manager right now, I think we would have more points than what we currently do. That's right. But I go back to when Russell Martin was unveiled, and I've said this a few times on the podcast. You listen to what Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart said. The football department of Rangers got together and made a decision about the style of football, the kind of philosophy of football that they believed would mean that we were successful domestically and in Europe. They talked about providing that kind of basis to data analysts who went away, crunched all the numbers, and it jumped out to me because I thought, you hear about data when you're trying to identify players. You don't really hear that much about when you're trying to identify a manager. So they crunched up, and top of the tree, we're led to believe was Russell Martin. Once Russell Martin goes, if we appoint somebody like Mourinho, for example, or a Sean Dyche, what we're then saying, and what I would hope those that get the chance to go and speak to these people at the unveiling would be saying, are you then saying that philosophy and that style of football that you, as part of that football department, deemed would make Rangers a success domestically and in Europe, that's out the window now? Because what's meant to happen here is you hope that your manager is successful, and that if they leave, it's because they're going to a bigger league, not a bigger club, but they're going to a bigger league. And then what you're then meant to do is the next guy comes in and he just plumps straight back in, because you're not buying players just because it's Russell Martin. You're buying players because that fits the philosophy and the style. So, regardless of who the managers are, these players should always be there. And again, you have that. So, it would be really interesting. I personally, I think the circus that would go around Mourinho would just be too much. I think it would be. I mean, it'd be entertaining, I dare say, but I think it would be too much. But it would be really interesting then to say, well, you're completely changing what you then told us only a matter of months ago was your belief and your style. So again, I think that would cause them real issues, because I think you would then start to question, do you really know what you are doing on that? So I think Lewis is right. I don't think it's a bad time, for the managers that are potentially out there and could be coming available for us. But first of all, they need to make the right decision and get rid of the guy that's currently in charge.
Yes. A couple of questions coming in. Jacob and the Starry-Eyed Shadows. I love that. It's a great name. Great name. Seeing how bad it is can get under a clueless manager. Are we, as fans, too quick to call for the sackings of perfectly capable managers when they hit sticky patches, e.g. Gio, etc., Kieran?
Look, Ibrox is a ticking time bomb, regardless if you're playing well or not. It only takes a certain result or two maybe before things start to become a little bit toxic. No manager is going to get the amount of time that Martin probably is going to get just now, because, dare I say it, if they do make another appointment, or when they make another appointment, they won't want to go on down this route again. Especially new owners don't want to see how toxic Ibrox is getting, and they're only getting a taster because realistically, this isn't as toxic as Ibrox can get. It can get a lot more toxic. Wait till we're out the clubs and everything, Mr. Optimism here. But with Gio, I mean, look, everyone wanted to sack Gio when he did go. Would I be wrong to say I'd be praying for him in a time like this right now, who would actually get the best, maybe some players? The problem is Gio's style again. He lived by that horseshoe and died by that horseshoe. Mm-hmm. And you can still see that some players in the previous regime were struggling to get out of that type of play. Yeah. The issue is with the type of managers that we have. Perfectly capable is maybe not the words I would use. I mean, Gerrard is the only manager that I've seen this team look like they were up for the fight. They looked like a Rangers team. They looked like they were up for the fight. And I said in our chat the other day, that was the only time I've ever seen Tav actually look like he was enjoying his football, where he had players around him, where he knew he didn't have to carry the team himself. So when we're talking about perfectly capable managers, no one's a perfectly capable manager. Everyone has their flaws. I mean, look at Big Ange down there. Was brilliant in Europe for Tottenham. Didn't quite cut it in the league. They got rid of him, and now he's at Nottingham Forest. Yeah. Football changes and evolves constantly, The only problem is with this is that, as Stuart said, if we're prepared to bring in another manager and they have a different type of philosophy, do the board then go, oh, well, humble pie for us, let's try what they've got? We need a manager that can ride these sticky patches. It's going to get clipped, I know that. We need a manager. We need a manager that can get through these sticky patches and come out on top.
Lewis, I'll take this one to you, this question. What would you do with Thelwell if Russell goes? I've been thinking about this one for quite a while. I mean, does this impending sacking, does that call into question Thelwell's sort of judgment and sort of, selection process?
I think it is too small of a sample size to really gauge how good Thelwell can be in his position at Rangers, because that's only one decision that he's made. Granted, it's a very, very poor decision, but if a new manager comes in and that manager has a success, and somebody like Churmity turns into, a young prime R9 and we sell him for 30 million, then he's actually done his job correctly. So yeah, I think it's too soon to really tar Thelwell with the same brush. It's different when it comes to a manager, because a manager has a lot more control over what actually happens on the pitch, whereas Thelwell is only the guy that's make the decisions on giving the manager the tools to then make the results come. So in my opinion, it's too short. It's only been one window as well, so I would give him some more time.
Yeah. And Stuart, final point to you tonight. I believe Kavanagh and Co are in town this midweek, and they're here for the Hibs game. Happy coincidence or planned, I don't know, but they're going to see if things go awry, as in we get put out of the League Cup, they're going to see the full force of the angry Rangers fans, the limited Rangers fans that are there. I think they're going to be lucky that it's not a full house, because if it was for example, if they were there on Saturday against Hearts, they would have felt the full force of that abuse in the director's box. I think they're just going to be very, very lucky that there's only going to be a half house on Saturday.
From where I'm in the main stand, I couldn't quite see it. It was one of those things where clearly something was happening around about the director's box. So I think Thelwell was probably getting a bit of stick, but the usual, everybody stands up even though they can't see it. And so, but there was definitely that. And yeah, you're right. If they'd been there, then I'm sure they would have been getting it as well. We touched on it. They will if they are here. The thing that's going to be glaringly obvious is at kick-off time, Ibrox is probably going to be half full, maybe. I don't think the number of people I know who have cancelled their CCS at this point. So they must be seeing what's coming through, what the ticket sales are for the European games. I can't imagine that's that they're flying out the door at the moment. So clearly they will get an indication of it. And yes, look, if things go poorly on Saturday, then I'm sure they'll be under no illusions about it. And you would have to say whether that is a coincidence that they're coming over. Then it would seem like be the perfect time to act if that is the case. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one Saturday, because again, I think folk like me rocking up to Ibrox on Saturday, I'm going there with no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not a nice place to be when you're going to support your football team. One thing I would say on that, and I've seen quite a bit of this online, people saying if you go on Saturday, you're part of the problem. I wish we would stop all that nonsense. You can. I'm going on Saturday because I want to go and support my team and I hope they win. Yeah. Right? It's not going to change my opinion on Russell Martin. And me being there doesn't mean that all of a sudden I'm backing him and think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I wish we would rein some of that in. I just don't think it's helpful. people will make their own choices. If you don't want to go, don't go. If you are there, you're going because you want to see Rangers win. And that's the bottom line. Doesn't change anything about our thoughts. So I wish we could rein that in a bit.
Yeah, because it's a difficult one because nobody should be telling anybody else what to do, either going or not going.
Totally.
You go to the game if you feel like you want to go. If you're a season ticket holder, you're more than entitled to either not go or go. It's your complete own decision. And if you feel going is not helping or is helping get the manager to sack, then fine. If whatever reason for going or not going, that's up to that individual person. And I would never criticize anybody for not going. Just the same as I wouldn't criticize anybody for going. It's
a personal choice, isn't it?
Yes, It's a personal choice. If you feel you don't want to go because the manager situation, then that is absolutely fine. I have no issue with that at all. If you want to go because, let's be honest, there's a lot of people that go to Rangers games because that's all they've got. There's nothing else. A lot of people go to football because they've got nothing else in their life, and that's what keeps them going. Is the 3 p.m. games on a Saturday. So are you going to turn around and tell somebody that an old guy that's in his 70s that's on his own, oh, don't go, mate. We can't go and support the team because we're trying to protest again. Go and tell that to a 70-year-old guy who lives on his own and lives for 3 p.m. Saturday.
There's a social element to it as well.
Yes.
I don't think Ibrox would have been sold out anyway because of these ridiculous kickoff times that we're getting landed with. That's freaking 5:45.
Yeah.
Nonsense in any case. So I think that will have an impact on the attendance, no doubt as well. I know we're kind of finishing up, Brian, but can we have a chat about Stephen McLean?
Yes, that was a topic I was going to come across. Yes, sorry, I completely. Wolf did mention it before we started the women's show, and I will come to it now. Kieran, the officials. Now, this isn't the first time we fell foul of officials and VAR and bizarre decisions going against us. This is just another one to add to the catalogue, isn't it?
Oh, it's just an absolute farce, mate. There's no really words to describe it apart from bias, cheating, comedic, fraudulent. Mate, it's horrendous. It's so bad. We could say the referees are our biggest problem, but we're our own worst enemy on the pitch at the moment. It doesn't help that Shankland's literally laughing about. He knows it's a handball. VAR can't identify it. The VAR shows as well of Diamandi literally pulling his foot away. Doesn't touch him. It doesn't look like it touches him. The guy goes down. If anything, it's a booking for simulation. But yeah, I just feel that it was so out of order. I mean, our goal, I don't see anything wrong. It looks like the keeper's going down before Asgard really touches him. It's just blatant cheating now, man. Like, before we always say, like, oh, can't really call it cheating, people make a mistake and everything like that. But their penalty wasn't a penalty against Kelly to rescue them the point because their team were going to maybe not get 3 points, so they had to intervene. And look, I can get clipped if they want to do that. I mean, it's just ridiculous how it then comes out later on as VAR watch come out and they go, oh, yeah, we made a mistake there. We'll shock add that to the list. There's a reason that we sing about the SFA during games.
I mean, Lewis, I always thought VAR was brought in to stop these ridiculous, nonsensical decisions, which, the cameras don't lie, right? Cameras don't. You can only see what you've been given. Now, how on earth a VAR panel can say, or the referee included in that, can say that what happened on Saturday is acceptable is beyond me.
I mean, you now have a professional footballer who was involved in said incident and full admittance that they felt and their understanding that goal was going to get chopped off.
Yeah.
So that's enough evidence right there for an investigation to be made. That's enough. There needs to be a statement from the referees in Scotland. There needs to be an immediate apology. And see the comments that are like, the referees are the least of their problems. That's exactly right. But see, when we're at our worst and we're at our best, we still need to call this out because it's a problem, no matter what. If we won that game 6-1, but we conceded that goal's still a problem. That goal still should not have stood. And the Celtic penalty's a disgrace. I mean, the majority of Celtic pundits are even saying it's a disgrace, and that's when it's bad. And Kettlewell even came out with his comments saying that they were in a meeting with the referees before the season, and they were under the impression that if that scenario had happened, that it wouldn't have become a penalty. So again, there's another team that deserves an apology.
I'm bringing it up, Brian.
I was about to say, when is our club going to actually stand up and say enough's enough here?
And Lewis is spot on. Actually, this should be a continual thing. So even if you're winning games, I know that's kind of fantasy land at the moment, winning a game of football, but even when you're winning, you should still be calling this stuff out. I didn't raise this today because I thought, we were cheated or anything like that. Hearts deserved their victory, but they deserved their victory on Saturday. But as Rangers fans, and I dare say Celtic fans get it as well, we'll all have had it put to us by work colleagues, friends, whatever, saying, yous always get the big decisions that go your way. Well, Hearts have just had 3 in the one game. And as Lewis touches on, the fact that Lawrence Shankland has went into a press conference after it and said, I handled it and I wasn't expecting, couldn't believe the goal was given. You could see in his reaction when he scored. He scores the penalty and or the rebound and he's sliding away. He barely celebrated because he thought, that's not going to be a goal. I don't want to make a fool of myself celebrating. Couldn't believe it. Our goal is, I genuinely cannot believe he's blown Stephen McLean. He's waited for the ball to go in the net and then blown because he's, rather than saying, you know what, I'm not sure what happened there. It's going to be checked by VAR anyway. But the fact that he's blown his whistle, that then makes it even harder because VAR will most likely say, we'll stick with the on-field decision there. Mm-hmm. The handball one he's looking right at, he's 8 yards away. And yet, for their penalty, where he's looking through groups of players, all of a sudden you can see that the standard of officiating is appalling. This was a game that had barely no contentious moments in it, but by the end of it, he'd kind of lost the plot, and that's what these refs do. So again, I repeat, Hearts more than deserved their 3 points on Saturday. I'm not blaming the ref. Rangers are their own worst enemy at the moment, the way that we're playing. But I think it would be wrong to not at least speak about the fact that performance from that referee and the VAR team was way below what we should be expecting in this country. Way below.
Even our goal as well, Stuart. The keeper's going down before Asgard really gets near him.
He actually pushes Asgard.
Mm-hmm.
So a goalkeeper can push somebody, but any player is not allowed to go anywhere near a goalkeeper. That's basically what you're saying. I think we've always known they have this kind of they're protected more than they should. But we've seen, I think Dermot Gallagher and that talked about that today on Sky Sports. Actually, down south, they've been a wee bit more. A goalkeeper's still a player on the pitch. There can be some form of contact on them. And actually, I think most people have went, we're glad to see that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that there was just an absolute shocker from Stephen McLean. A really poor performance. Even wee things. Rothwell gets injured, and the Hearts player who's standing beside him is signalling, you need to get the trainer on. He runs the full length of the pitch to stand over him and then calls on the trainers. The whole Ibrox was just laughing at him. Yeah. What are you doing? It's that I honestly don't know where we go in this country with the standard of refereeing and what happened the next day. Yeah, It's again laughable. I know Celtic fans who are even saying, "My God, how can what's that boy meant to do with his arm?"
Look how quick it was to give the penalty. Do you know what I mean? It was like he was absolutely gagging to have that whistle in his mouth.
And how quick the VAR review for our goal to be disallowed. Again, Ibrox was laughing at the speed of, it comes up on that screen, VAR check, goal, and within 20 seconds. So they've looked at it once.
Yeah.
That's not them studying that in detail and saying, actually, I'm not sure you've got that right there, Stephen.
No. And I think the referee at the Celtic game obviously was a telling one as well, because he's been on the receiving end of abuse from them as well. So, that was another, he was terrified not to give that. He knew he had to give that. Eh?
Those pesky Masons.
Absolutely. And, John Beaton knew fine he had to give that decision, because if he didn't, there was going to be a more coming his way. So,
but they'll still be there next week.
Yes, of course they will.
Beaton and the VAR teams will still be there picking up their £1,000 for what is a really poor 90 minutes of work.
Yeah.
So there's no consequences to any of these guys.
No. And there never will be, apparently, because every time Rangers bring something up, the SFA take note, and oh yes, we'll take note. That notes must be a very long page now. Pages, should I say, because it's just, and there's no sign of, things getting better, because there's no decent young referees.
Questions should be asked of Willie Collum.
Well, of course there should be, but I mean, he's been in situ because he's one of the boys, isn't jobs for the boys. He's been put there because he's favoured and he's very well liked, so that's why he's put in there. But the refereeing situation is not changing anytime soon, unfortunately, folks. So we're going to have to suffer this. And as I say, I thought VAR was going to stop all this sort of ifs, buts, maybes, and decisions. I thought it was going to be straight down the line. But even with VAR, there's still no, straight down the line decisions. It's still dodgy and very questionable. So it's a difficult pill to swallow. But unfortunately, that is where we are. But Kieran, thank you very much. And Stuart, thank you.
I would say it was a pleasure, but I'm not sure it was.
No, it wasn't. No, but was it a good bit of therapy, perhaps?
A wee bit of therapy. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. So, folks, that is us for the Monday night. We will be back tomorrow morning with the morning rabble, the afternoon rabble at 12:30, and then we'll be back tomorrow with the members show at 7:00. Please join us then. And until then, until we speak soon, and take care.